Hi there. I just wanted to address the actual question about the existence of Israel, for example, the right of existence. Imagine somebody living in that lived in France, okay, in 1200, for example, and his descendants right now would come and say, for example, that their ancestors lived before French people, okay, in France. What is France right now? And we're gonna say historically it is true, okay. For example, it doesn't mean that their descendants would come right now and say, okay, to go to France and say to French people, okay, now guys, you will have to leave because our ancestors lived here before you. And this means you will have to leave right now. That's our country. What do you think French people would say? They would fight back. And there would probably be a war or something like that. Both sides would try to fight each other for the same piece of land. That's the question here. And this would be totally illegal. Let's be real about it. Because it wouldn't make sense to just come and say, oh, my ancestors came, my ancestor lived here before your people. Simply because everybody on the planet came from somewhere. Every country, every people came from some place and took place in another place where they did found, for example, did make their country. It would be a total big mess to actually come and try to argue that their ancestors were there before, because almost every country, somebody was before them, okay? Meaning there would be wars all the time and people would just fight each other. It would be total death and total anarchy everywhere. That's why it's total joke to come and try to argue in a way like, for example, Israelis say, even if it's true, for example, Israeli, for example, were before the Palestinians, for example, it doesn't mean you can just come and try to say, okay guys, you will have to leave because our ancestors were here before you. It wouldn't make sense. Let's be real about it. Like I just said, it would be total anarchy and everybody would do the same. Like France, somebody was before them, the people that were the descendant of the people that were before French people, for example, would come and try to kick out French people, and they would just fight back. And everybody on the planet would give them reason for French people, and probably even the Israeli themselves would give them reason. I mean, in reality, you cannot take this and say, oh, at the bottom line, if you really insist on living in a place, just try to collaborate with them. Try to either live there, go and live. But if you still insist you don't want to live under their, for example, governance, for example, in this case, like they insist this much. Personally, I would go for a two-state solution. Why? Because they insist this much, and to avoid anarchy, to avoid everybody killing each other, millions of people killing each other, I think it's better, at least at the bottom line, to get a two-state solution. One for the Palestinians and one for the Israeli. This would be the best option. But let's be real, Israeli would never agree with that. Simply because they are not really interested in this. They are interested in taking the whole thing. Whatever you're gonna say, they will try to take the whole thing illegally. Let's be real. I mean, at the bottom of the line, like I just said, it will go for a two-state solution. That's the bottom line. Okay, simple. Or they just leave from there, because like I said, at the international level, you cannot just come and say my ancestors were here, simply because everybody would do that, and it would be totally illegal and totally not permitted. Okay, I hope it's very, very clear here. Meaning we should, I think, at the bottom line, simply because Israeli insists this much on being there and having their own state, just get two-state solution. But Israeli will not agree with it, because they are not just counting on taking just the whole place and also the Palestinian part, but literally, I think almost all Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and big portions of Egypt. That's a big mess, okay? Meaning millions of people could either be deported or killed to get there. That's the question here. I mean, in reality, that's totally criminal, okay? And if you really wanted to get peace in the region, which Israel will not permit, let's be real, and even Palestinians would say, actually, that's their land. And at the international level, they are rightful in saying that. Because you cannot, like I said in the beginning, just come and say my ancestors lived here 1,000 years ago or whatever, okay? You cannot do that. But like I said, at the bottom line, if they really insist on getting there to avoid millions of people being killed in both sides, just get a two-state solution. But this might never happen, because let's be real, Israel will never accept it. And even if Palestinians get to the point to accept it, I don't think Israel would do that. They are not really interested in this. Thank you very much. Enjoy.